We are live. So here is what we're going to do. First, step one is JD and I are going to give you guys a little bit of a summary of what's going to happen. Then our guests are going to introduce themselves. Then we're going to take a few moments to learn more about Brian. And then we are going to get into the real tough questions for Brian. And they are going to be tough today because I stayed up a good portion of the night last night thinking about the call with the shippers. Brian, did you happen to see the one with the shippers? And it's okay if you didn't. I know you're busy.
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, because that was interesting. So now it's going to be even more interesting to see what you have to say. So for those of you who are watching on social media and not in Zoom with us, I want you to know that every day this week, me, JD, and Jamin have had content for you at 2 o'clock Chicago time.
Yes.
And we want you guys to ping us and tell us how you think it's been going. Do you like having the content every day? Tomorrow at 2 o'clock Chicago time is our broker day.
That's going to be a big show.
It is. Today is carriers with Brian. And Friday is our normal mad Tropolis. Everybody comes together. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be heated.
That's
and we're going to have that with Dave Abels. So here's where I want to get started. First of all, JD, for those very few humans who do not know who you are, could you introduce yourself, my friend?
Guys, I am JD Redmon. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at TTN Fleet Solutions. Been in the industry now going on 2.5 years. Studied underneath Jim Coffrin, my sensei, who helped build out Hirschbach. He helped build out PeopleNet. Really smart guy. And I've just fallen in love with freight. I've fallen in love with logistics. So I'm just another logistics nerd and just trying to make sure that we all can learn. And I know Brian's going to bring the education today.
He most certainly is. And Brian, would you introduce yourself for us?
Sure. First of all, thanks for inviting me on. My name is Brian Fielkow. I'm a CEO of Houston-based Jetco Delivery and Executive Vice President of Montreal-based the GTI Group. I purchased, you know GTI well, JD. So I purchased Jetco in 2006, and then last May sold to GTI. And so we're busy building out our platform. It's been a lot of fun and exciting, and certainly a little bit of a challenge in the current environment that we're in, but we're doing well. Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your freight. You're a carrier, right? And for those of you who don't know your company, what's the breadth of your freight, or do you have a certain niche that you're in?
Yeah, our focus is kind of a full service model in the local regional area. So in other words, we've got terminals in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Freeport, Texas. And we have a mix of, we have 3 basic divisions: flatbed heavy haul, intermodal, so import export, and then dry van. And then we have a brokerage affiliate, a couple of brokerage affiliates, GTI USA and Jetco Logistics. So we do a lot of third party also. So yeah, I've been watching the carrier broker arguments, and I see it from both sides. I see it from both sides. Absolutely.
Good, because we might need a little bit of that knowledge again.
I think that might be good, Cassandra, if he does kind of toe that line, because we did have John Elliott on, so he gave that perspective of kind of the broker and the carrier. But I'm interested to hear Brian, because Brian's a straight shooter. He's kind of like Dave Abels. Like they don't really fluff. It is what it is. Facts are the facts. So I'm interested to see what he does.
We also have on the phone, I think we have Clinton. Are you here, Clinton?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
What's up, Clinton?
Hey.
Where are you today?
Right now I'm driving to Saskatchewan here. I'm just about to Saskatoon.
Wow.
Is that Canada?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm up in Canada. I did a load from southern Alberta over to Bremerton, Washington on the west coast there over the weekend, and then I reloaded out of Vancouver, BC yesterday, and I'm on my way to Saskatoon to deliver today here. So
I love it. And V is also Vitali. I did it. Did I do it right? Vitali. He's also from Canada. He's on our Shippy show yesterday. And he said, what's up? He likes to see that we have other Canadians. I actually have a heavy Canadian followers.
Yes.
JD and I were talking about that not too long ago.
Yeah.
Antonia has just joined us as well. And I can see her in the comments. Hi, Antonia.
Hey, Antonia.
She is one of our favorite small carriers. So here's what we're going to do later on in just a little, like maybe 30 minutes or so, we're going to have Steve Jarosinski join us as well. And Steve is a very close friend of mine from the maintenance department or entity of Schneider, because I wanted to just blend in a little maintenance. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, here's what I'm going to ask of you. Gov, Brian, Clinton is good, but Gov and Brian, not allowed to look at the poll I'm going to launch. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm launching a poll for you to please on Zoom vote.
I can't help but
don't look at it. Do not look at it.
Now, how can I not look? It's right in front of me.
Well, you've got to look somewhere else. No cheating. So what we're going to do
over here, yeah.
So in it, Brian, as we're gonna act like we don't see this on the screen right now.
We're gonna pretend it's not. We're gonna pretend it's not there.
It's not here at all. It's
you guys
not
give
there.
me a heads up.
I've actually exited out of it. Let me just exit out. There we go.
I'm giving the Zoom people a chance to vote because these are very, very hard questions. I spent a lot of time on them because I wanted Brian to get tripped up.
Here we go.
But I tried to keep him professional, Brian. Yeah, although I will not do that for Dave Abels on Friday. He won't.
Oh, Dave is in trouble. I got a question for Dave, specifically for Dave. So Dave knows I like to ask him questions because he's an industry veteran. So I got.
All right, you guys ready? Okay, Brian, you're gonna go first. Okay. This is a game called Who Would You Rather?
Oh gosh.
Just kidding. It's called Which Would You Rather? I just want to see Brian's face.
We got somebody in from London too.
Ooh, London, nice. I see Mark Lawrence said go Big Orange.
Yeah.
Okay, so ready? Here's your question. Which would you rather, Brian? Have a clone of yourself, another Brian, walking around, and you can boss that Brian around. Tell that Brian what to do. But this is for life, Brian.
Yeah, okay.
Or
it's a big commitment.
It is. You're like, this is your person.
That's it.
Or have a pet dog who can talk for life, by the way. That dog doesn't die in 10 years. It's for life. So those of you who voted and you want to change it because it's a for life thing.
For life?
What you got, Brian? You want the clone or do you want the dog for the
Justin Shepard says, is the clone obedient?
I want the dog. One of me is enough. One of me is more than enough.
I thought for sure he would pick the clone. And the clone, it is obedient. You can tell it what to do. That's a good question, though, Justin. Erica Howe says the same thing.
As long as you can't talk back.
So the crowd is really split. It's 58% say the clone, but then 42% say the dog.
I would go the dog.
You would?
100%. I mean, I love me, and I think I'm a great guy, but there's only so much of JD that the world can handle, and even I have that understanding. So I would just have my little dog that I could chat with, sounding board. That's it.
Yeah, but that dog's gonna tell your woman stuff too. It's gonna be like Donkey on Shrek.
Yeah, I'm more thinking, Brian from Family Guy, but
that's why I was
yes. All right, we already like him. You just referenced Family Guy.
Yes.
And Clinton, which one would you prefer?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I've been accused of having multiple personalities, so I don't think this world is big enough for two of me. So I'd have to go with the dog.
I like it. Plus, the dog can keep you company, and your vehicle fits a little bit better, not so big. Okay, so now we got our next question. All right, Clinton, you're going to go first on the next question, okay?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Oh, that's not my game music. This is my game music. Here we go. So, Clinton, for the rest of your life, sorry, I was very dramatic today. For the rest of your life, you have a choice, and you can't do anything else. This is your personality that I'm changing for the rest of your life. Do you want to have a Robert De Niro impression for the rest of your life or Seinfeld? And that means when you walk around, all you do is talk about Robert. Yeah, me too. Robert De Niro. I'm waiting. Brian, which one do you want, Brian?
I don't know. It's either this, or it's King of the Castle. So I'll probably have to go with De Niro.
Yep, that's a good one. Gov.
And listen, De Niro is the Godfather. So, I know we call Ron Kane the Godfather, but De Niro is truly America's Godfather. So sticking with America's team like the Cowboys, I'm going to stick with America's Godfather.
I like it.
I got a bad connection. You said the Packers, right? I thought I heard the Packers.
Amanda Miller says De Niro for sure. Patrick Wallace, he wants to be the dog. He wants to have the dog that talks. So one more question, and then we're going to get to the education. I like to do the questions because it gives people relaxed, gives people time also on social media to come in.
It does.
So I'm going to skip one of these questions and ask Brian. You're going first now, Brian. All right, Brian, this is another rest of your life. You're stuck in a marriage, Brian, okay? With someone who talks incessantly, does not shut up, ever, or you're in a marriage for life with someone who doesn't speak, who rarely speaks a word. So you got nonstop yapping, or when you ask him or her, hey, what do you want for dinner? They're like, food.
Well, my wife is watching this, so I'm
I was about to
screwed.
say, let's put a non-disclaimer, non-disclosure disclaimer.
This is a hypothetical situation.
This is hypothetical. Like, let's not get him in trouble at home tonight, and then he calls me upset, like, Jaden.
Well, all right, you need somebody communicative, so I'll go with that.
Nice.
You're gonna go with incessant talking. All right, JD, what's yours?
Got to be a one-worder because I'm not as much as I talk on this show, many people would be very, very surprised to know I'm an introvert at the core. I don't talk often at home, so a one-word woman would be perfect, which is why I'm gonna marry the woman I'm with now, because we both are very much to the point.
I like it. Clinton, what are you thinking?
I'm usually the one yapping all the time, and my wife's fairly quiet. So I liked what I have now. So I'd go with the quiet wife because she balances me out pretty good. So
I like it. I love that. Okay, so you guys, just so you know, I forgot about the poll because I'm a ditz like that. So it was it's almost 50-50. De Niro and Seinfeld. And talks too much and never says anything. That's almost 50-50 too. The majority wants a talk too much wife. Which I'm surprised. I thought most people would want.
No.
Or I shouldn't say wife, spouse. Talk too much or too quiet. So
if it was too quiet, you'd always be reading minds. You always be wondering, what are they thinking? So
yeah, you assume things.
But see, I wouldn't think that because I have my dog that talks. So like, that's enough talking.
You can't be blending in the woodges. I had another hard question, but we're gonna wait for that for later on. So this is what we're going to do. First of all, Brian and Clinton. I woke up saucy this morning, salty and saucy at the same time. I think there was an article, I saw it, I'm tired of it. It came out, it was showing like truckers saying brokers need to be regulated, brokers need to go home, brokers die, I don't know, it was all this stuff, right? We've been hearing it for what? We've been hearing it for what, JD? Like,
since the shutdown, 4.5, 6 weeks.
So carriers, number one, are convinced that brokers are taking their profit and paying them very low rates. True, thank you.
Are brokers taking your profit?
Are you talking to Clint here?
Well, Clinton, why don't you go since you're already loud and clear? Or not. Brian, what you got for us?
On the whole broker carrier issue? Look,
first question though is are brokers taking carriers' profit?
Brokers are making a margin for the work they do, like they always have. And so that's what you get when you work with a broker. Brokers add a value in the supply chain. They're necessary. There are some good brokers. There are some brokers that maybe, maybe not playing by the rules you'd want them to. But we have a market issue here. The same broker trucker dynamics that are at work today are the ones that have been at work forever. But we've got an unprecedented market.
What value does it bring, though, Brian? Like, what value does a broker bring to? And I want 3 answers. What value does a broker bring to a carrier under 250 assets, a carrier between 250 and 1,000, and a carrier above 1,000? Is it the same value prop, or should people that have less than 250 think that they should work directly with the shipper? Like, where does that broker actually add value?
Well, our industry is so fragmented that the broker is going to balance out demand. So it's not realistic to think that the shipper is going to call 50, 60 carriers. Hey, do you have a truck in that market? It doesn't work that way. So the broker amalgamates demand. The broker matches. It's a specialty. And again, like I mentioned, I think before we went live, we have an asset-based trucking companies and brokerage companies. So we've got. So I see it from both directions. The idea that the government should come in and regulate margin, it's not right. The problem fundamentally in my mind is that we're fighting over a pie that got real small real fast.
Ooh.
And that's causing a lot of angst, and it should. I mean, we should all have a very high level of angst right now. There's a lot of discomfort in the market, but I just think that the supply chain wars, broker versus carrier, I don't know. I'm not buying it. Now, are there bad guys on all ends of the spectrum? Sure, but there's great people too. So I really believe it's more of a market issue. Not to say there aren't unscrupulous people on the periphery taking advantage.
Do brokers make the market? That's a question in the comment right now from Brad Forrester. He says they are the market makers. So you being on both sides, is a broker the one who really determines the market rate?
Not really. I mean, the broker, a good broker has to have a pulse of the market. They've got to know what lanes are hot, what lanes are cold. They've got to have a pulse of the market. But to think that, and a broker will negotiate rates with a carrier, that's what happens. But it's hard for me if the market for a given lane is $2 a mile. It's hard for me to see a broker taking it down to $1.50 a mile. I mean, brokers influence the market. But I think carriers influence the market too. The market's it's an amalgamation of a lot of different factors. We got to bring shippers in. I mean, the busier the shippers are, right? And then there's a seasonality to it that affects the market. So produce season will affect different parts of the country, right? So there's the market is complex. To think that the broker controls the market and says, I'm going to drive it down, sort of ignores the fact that most businesses right now are closed or just reopening because of the pandemic.
Yeah. So yesterday.
Can I comment on this?
Yes,
too?
absolutely, Clinton. Sorry.
I just wanted to say, like, I've been beating up brokers online, but at the end of the day, the brokers, you're right, they do have to set the pulse for the market or for the rate. But what I find that's cutting into my profit margins is that these brokers, the shippers got a load to ship. They need it shipped immediately. Brokers are holding out on carriers for an extra $300 or $400 profit to themselves, instead of saying, okay, carrier, grab that load and go. And my case is like, I'm not making money unless I'm loaded both ways. And if I see a load that comes online, I'm going to bid on it, and I'm going to give them a price so that I can get that load immediately and just get going and turn and burn and get on to the next project. And what I find is carriers are holding out, and they're dragging these loads out for a week at a time. Well, now I'm losing money because I'm sitting around for a week waiting on the broker to pull the trigger. And that's my biggest problem, I think, with carriers or with brokers. It's not that they're beating us up on price, or it's not so much the beating us up on price, but it's the, we're not making money unless we're turning wheels. And so we don't have time to shop around to save $300 here and there.
That makes sense. That's a lot of sense. I mean, he brought up a good point, because if he's having a deadhead 30% of his, I mean, he's losing money. That's his margin right there. So that makes perfect sense, Clint.
Yeah. Eric Serta, who I love, but he said most shippers will take another rate if you try to hold out. He said, if you think I can hold out, you might be mistaken. And then Chris Jolly says, agreed, Eric. And over here in LinkedIn, Jonathan Trimble is lighting up LinkedIn.
Yes.
He's very passionate about these topics. I love having him with us. And he said, that's a supply and demand issue. If there are 600 trucks and they have a load, then why shouldn't they be able to capitalize on it? So it's interesting to see what folks are saying. Derek Waycott says, if brokers make 15 to 20% GP, that is understandable.
So Brian, how have you been staying afloat? I've watched you. I've been in awe. Jetco's been in the news in Houston. You've done a lot of interviews. You've had people come to you asking you questions specifically on how have you been able to flip the switch and weather this storm. This pandemic is something that many of us have not experienced before in business. So what did you do? What are you doing right now that is keeping Jetco afloat on the carrier side, as well as with your different subsidiaries on the brokerage side? What are you doing right now, Brian, to stay up?
Well, right now, look, it's not easy for anybody. I mean, and so everybody is squeezed in this market. So for me to come and say that, oh well, we've got it licked and it's all fine would be disingenuous. But I've learned a few things, especially coming out of Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Harvey. I mean, I'm not saying the pandemic is exactly the same. It's not. But I am saying that you learn how to manage through crisis. And so you focus intensely on what you can control. The old saying is, right, I can't control the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails. And maybe that cliche is overused, but I've got to focus on my team. I've got to know my costs, because there's no use in running a truck for practice. I've got to focus on relationships. We've never been a spot player, so that even if freight is constrained right now, there's still freight. So, people where we've got relationships, I think we're working together. We're in communication. We're being relevant to our customers. We're helping them through the logistics side of the pandemic, being a thought leader.
What is that, Brian? What is that? Because on our show, you have a lot of small carriers wanting to grow. You have a lot of brokers who are wanting to get better relationships. And that becomes a reoccurring topic. We've had some people say, that's all you guys talk about, but relationships are that important in transportation. So Brian, you're saying the relationships are good. This is one of the reasons why things are successful at Jetco. Talk to me about what you've done with your different brokers or partners to build that relationship over the years.
Yeah, it's about building trust. So let's turn the clock back a couple of years, JD. 2016, not such a great year for freight.
Right.
Then we get into 17 and 18, and things get really hot.
Mm-hmm.
And trucks are hard to come by. Well, I can tell you right now that the people that stood by us in 16 and early 17, and they needed our trucks, they were first in line. And it wasn't at the high, and it wasn't at the highest price either. I could have placed those trucks elsewhere for more money in a lot of cases. But so you have to know your customers. If you've got people that want to play the spot market, then you play the spot market with them. But the ones that stood by you, and the ones that are standing by us right now, I'll be damned if they're needing a truck when this market flips, and it's going to flip. I think that even if the economy doesn't have a V-shaped recovery, I think trucking will for a lot of other reasons, and we're going to stand by those people. So it's playing long ball. I saw a lot of people, we all saw it in 18, especially when the market was on fire, just dropping people for that last, $10.
Yep.
And on the brokerage side, with our brokerage companies, we can empathize more than a lot of brokers because we are a carrier on the other side.
Right.
So we're paying as fast as we can. We're paying. And we can't pay some above market rate. We wouldn't get any work, but we're certainly trying to work with our shippers and the shipper and the carrier to get to the right price. We make a margin, everybody's treated fairly, even if it's not an optimal price for the trucker, but then we're paying fast. So we're making sure that our carriers are taken care of quickly because we know the cash is king right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll tell you that the comments are blowing up. Brandon Dawson, we all call him the Dragon Slayer. He says that Brian is talking about building long-term relationships. Sound familiar? And Kyle Horst says, Brian, hats off to you showing integrity. And you got a standing ovation from Eric Serta. Hi, Steve Jarosinski. Welcome.
Steve.
Hey.
Buddy. So you're getting a lot of thumbs up as well, Brian. Clinton, what has been the big adjustment you've had to make or what you've had to do to build relationships to kind of push through this market right now?
Well, I mean, the long haul market for me is new. I've been an oil field guy my whole life, and I agree with the loyalty part. You build relationships, and like you said, you show loyalty to your customers, they show loyalty back. I mean, that's 90% of my relationships right now is the loyalty and the honesty, and just being straight up with everybody and just laying it on the line, like, this is what it's going to cost me to do it, and I'm not bullshitting you. Like, here's my permits, here's my pilot car costs, here's my expenses, this is what it cost me, that's why I've come to this number. And I don't know, I believe in honesty and integrity and loyalty.
I'm with you.
You know, JD and I were talking about this. JD, were we talking about this on Monday, I think?
Which one?
But we were talking about, hey, for the last 4 weeks or 5 weeks at Madtropolis, we have been talking about relationship building.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of carriers and brokers and shippers continuously talk about relationship building. And so it's interesting. Tomorrow, I'm sure we're going to be talking about outbound California freight.
I just posted that. I just said, are loads out of California, Chicago still too expensive? What's going on?
So it'll be interesting to see who's gouging. Who's price gouging?
So Brian, what do you recommend? Because this was a question from Randy Hudson. What do you recommend to the brokers out there that are kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to lanes and the spot market rate? I know you don't play in that spot too often, but is there any feedback, any growth initiatives that you would challenge? Because I know if you walked in as the CEO of a brokerage that was kind of scraping the way we're seeing some of these rates, you would kind of change some things. So what would you say to encourage, or maybe you wouldn't say anything at all?
I'd say never waste a good crisis. And what I mean by that is you got to use these times as an opportunity to reinvent yourself. So you got to take a hard look in the mirror. Because when it's really busy and things are blowing and going, we're covering loads. We're moving freight. But when it's a little quiet, you got to use that time to reflect. And if all I've got is price to compete on, I'd be scared out of my pants for the next 10, 20 years as a broker. I'd be looking at technology investments. I'd be looking at being, more than a point A to point B spot guy. I'd be a solutions provider. And that's exactly what we're doing. Because you've got, whether you're a carrier or a broker, or really in any business for that matter, you got to decommoditize yourself, because competing on price alone is no fun. You got to bring more to the table, and what you bring to the table has got to be valued by your customers. I'd be using this quiet time to figure that out.
That's a really good point. And Ron Kane, the freight godfather, he's a shipper, and other shippers, especially V, have told us that this is a time that we should be, brokers and carriers should be looking to diversify your portfolio, try to specialize in certain niches of the industry, and try to figure out how to solve your shippers' problems. So it was interesting yesterday. Let's switch gears, because I don't want to talk about rates anymore. I want to switch gears to talk about how COVID has impacted our operations. And then I also want to hear from Steve. I'm dragged Steve onto this show. And just so you guys know, Steve has a long history with me.
I'm sorry, Steve. I apologize about that now.
Just send the sympathy cards with cash inside just right to my house.
Understood, sir. You know what, Steve? You and I should go out. I'm not a dairy guy nor a meat guy, but you and I should go out for lasagna. I really feel a connection with you, Steve, on that last statement.
Really?
So do a dairy-free vegetarian lasagna, but whatever lasagna you want, I'm there to share it with Brian. Clinton, you guys are welcome to come.
Oh my God, I'm not
and
enjoy.
How
do I mute him? I know how to mute him.
I'll bring the beer.
Yeah, no, that's the spirit. And you know that Steve Jarosinski has Spotted Cow. Because he's in Wisconsin.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know. So
every time I go to see my little guy, he's in the Navy. Every time I go to see him, I have to shove the trunk as full as I can with cases of Spotted Cow. That's his favorite.
We do the same. We do the same thing. I go to Wapaco a lot, so I'm up in your neighborhood quite a bit.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because if JD, if you want to complain about me, Steve has a lot to complain about. So Steve is in the maintenance, heads up the maintenance department at Schneider.
The first maintenance person on MadGaines, baby.
Yeah, oh, yes, that's right. Yay.
Right.
Hold on, where's my little clapping thing?
Steve, let's go.
Okay, you guys, Steve is so smart.
Oh, boy.
We would have accidents. And in my office, I had all whiteboards around my room because we had to have Steve for hours, right, Steve? He had to come over and draw out how the accident happened from a maintenance standpoint, so we could understand the litigation and we could defend it. And sometimes he had to, like, I know what a drive shaft is, thanks to Steve, and every part of it and how they work. And, but sometimes, you guys, he would start talking really high level smart shit.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, darn it. How many minutes am I in? 37. That's my first curse word. And Steve would have to dumb things down. And we also picked on Steve a lot.
Oh, yeah. I believe my picture was on a board of dogs there for a long time.
It was called the dogs a Schneider, and then Steve was in the middle.
But here's the thing, Steve. What people don't get, Steve, and I can't talk too much about it because I'll go on forever. But maintenance is such a huge portion of the carrier broker shipper relationship that only people in maintenance actually understand what happens when that truck driver says, I just broke down. If you guys really knew that you could have a tow company touch it, a mobile repair company touch it, a diagnostic company touch it, a heavy duty repair shop touch that same truck before it gets back on the road to deliver your load for you, I promise you, if you just saw that one time, you would have a different level of empathy for Clinton out there, for Ingrid out there, for Dave Murphy, Wayne. You would have a different level of empathy for these drivers.
So I want to talk about how operations has changed through the difficulties of COVID. And Steve, I'll get to you last, though. I want to get to Brian and Clinton first to just keep smooth with the carrier format. So Brian, yesterday the shippers were talking about some of the biggest changes came from warehouse management, loading, unloading, drivers checking in and out, bill ladings, all that jazz. Did you see that as a big change from a carrier perspective? And did you struggle, or were you guys pretty smooth with the transition? Or did you see something else that you wanted to talk about with regards to COVID?
No, we were pretty smooth. We were developing plans to protect our drivers. We were anticipating that shippers would, be changing how they do business. But maybe they're taking your temperature when you get in. Maybe, no more sharing pens, no more sharing PPE. Electronic signatures. We were anticipating all that, and I think it's been a pretty smooth issue. I think our whole focus is there's a book that I think everybody should buy, even if they don't read it. It's called Employees First, Customers Second. Just put it on your shelf as a reminder. And so we were focused on the safety of our employees because, if you think the cell phone's a distraction, and it is, COVID's a bigger distraction. And so we've just been focused on making sure that our people had a clear mind, performing a very high risk, high consequence task. And I think we've executed very well on that because again, we put the driver first and developed, I think, some very good policies early on for their own protection. And we've tried to make sure our dispatch and customer service team is asking our shippers, hey, any special rules? We want to know before we go, so we're prepared. Yeah.
Clinton, how have things been? You don't have a big company behind you. You're like a lot of our followers where it's Clinton, everything falls on Clinton's shoulders. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have to deal with warehouse people or, stuff like that. I haven't really noticed a huge change, other than the biggest thing that for me, when I'm done loading or unloading, I like to shake the customer's hand, and that's not happening lately, which that's about the biggest change for me. I mean, we always wear other than maybe a face mask, we always wear our PPE and our gloves and our hard hats and boots, and we take care of ourselves. And but I mean, I haven't noticed it hasn't really affected me on that part. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think some of the operational challenges were, I'm sorry, like when we were in full shutdown mode, I mean, it was a lot more acute. Getting a meal, good luck driving a truck through a drive-through. Doesn't quite work.
Yeah, that's true.
That's letting up a little bit. But when a month ago, it was a different story.
Steve, what changes did you see in your side of the world in maintenance?
I'm curious about this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
and my dumbass, I was like, man, nothing. Steve's fine. Nothing's changed in his world. He was like, no, Cassandra.
Yeah, well, it was pretty interesting because even if you think about an over-the-road vendor, depending what state you were going to, some of them would say, well, if your truck comes in, no matter what, we have to let it sit for 2 weeks before we can touch it, before we'll even diagnose it.
Whoa.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was a big one, and I think a lot of that has backed off now. One other thing, I want to mention this before I forget, but some cities were on lockdown, so that if you weren't an essential employee, you had to go into quarantine for 14 days. If we had a student coming in for classes, if they didn't tell their occupation they were going into, which was essential, and they may have been coming from what was considered a non-essential employment, State Patrol in some cases would shuffle them over to quarantine. So they were even delayed getting drivers into the program for that. But you think about the other things, we would have teams coming in asking for shields between the teams to separate them. And we did have, I know of one team that had one positive COVID and one, but the other driver that was with them tested negative. So that was kind of interesting because, you get this impression that once one person has it, everybody around them has it. Not necessarily true, but I will give kudos to our driver services people because they had a good supply of PPE. They had, everybody got their hand sanitizer, everybody got masks. I heard of no shortages anywhere. So that was really good planning on their part. Yeah. The other thing though, is we were searching for chemical or surface treatments so that before a technician worked on the truck, so that he wasn't potentially getting the virus. And then also after, so that he wasn't, if he had the virus but was non-symptomatic, he wasn't passing it on to the driver, who could then, of course, go around the country and pass it in many, many pockets.
Steve, tell me a little bit more about that shield in between team drivers. Was that just for short haul, like Green Bay to Chicago, maybe? Which is not really short haul, but you know what I mean?
Well, we had people requesting that, and we didn't have a good solution for it. So, if you think about, there was always this graphic I remember about the iPod. When the iPod first came out, you had Apple charging the way, plowing through, and the graphic was a shopping cart pushing through snow, and it would leave these little tracks in the snow. And then you had all these other little companies following in the tracks of this big Apple shopping cart. And those would be like, the little holder for it on your shoulder if you're jogging, something for your desk, the one that wakes you up in the morning, all these little companies. So we eventually, they're developing solutions, small companies, one-offs, and everybody's calling you at once for either a training shield in between for driver trainer and a student, or team to team, or even, as teams are sharing the bunk, how do they keep their personal belongings more separated? How do you clean that surface? So, and as we reassign a truck from one driver to the next, how do you clean the whole inside? So we've been experimenting with different chemicals and processes and sprays and wipes. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's a lot on the maintenance side. Even you have some service providers that, although that's their bread and butter, they were saying in the very beginning, I'm shutting down for a week or two. You have those heavy duty repair shops that are ran by families only, a father, a son, a wife, and an aunt, and they were all saying, I choose my family. And you had to respect that. So typically where a truck could break down in a metropolitan area and have 500 plus service providers that may be readily available during that week, you only had about 200, 300 that were open, and you may not have had a relationship with them. So it was some constraints on that as well. So the same way you're seeing a supply and demand constraint for freight, there's a supply and demand constraint for maintenance too.
The other thing it's sort of maintenance related, just because we handle truck parameters on our side. And as you know, we have pretty tight control over our idle. There's a few drivers that I talk to just about every week as part of my test group. One driver, I was surprised to see him there late on a Friday night. And I saw his truck there. He was in his truck. I went over and talked to him. And he said, well, no, I'll be here all weekend, because he lives with his parents yet. His mom's getting older, so he kind of takes care of her, but she's at risk. So he doesn't go home at all. He stays in the truck the entire weekend. So we're finding this now, we're changing our idle parameters for special cases like that. So the guy's more comfortable in the truck over the whole weekend, when normally we wouldn't do a 34-hour reset in the truck. Other things come up like hotel allowances. Even guys that are at risk that are driving for us, we're making special allowances for them too. So it's a lot on the maintenance side. It's kind of like if it doesn't fall in our driver services area, it kind of defaults over to maintenance.
Yes, I can see
Always.
that. And
Always.
so I wanted to know what anybody can answer this too is how are you handling drivers who could have COVID or even warehouse workers or may have COVID, or what if a driver, actually I'm going to reverse. What if the driver is in the middle of the country, in the middle of the load and getting a fever and is convinced that he or she has COVID? How have you guys been handling that, especially the scares too?
Yeah, for us, it's been get them to the nearest test facility, and now tests are becoming more available, more ubiquitously, I guess. And but before they were hard to come by, so it's almost a prearranged test, and then isolate wherever you are, isolate until you get the test results back.
What do you do with the truck?
Usually it's sat. Relay the loads, but the truck sits.
I mean, you do have some companies out there now that are starting to specialize in like asset disinfecting. So tractor trailer, they're going into terminals, into DCs. You have a few people that are now offering that service, and it is needed. I don't think we realize that truckers may be in an isolated position, but they still do have interactions. Like Clinton said, I'm not shaking hands with my shippers anymore. I'm not shaking hands. I don't have a place to eat. It's a big problem. And you have a question here for Brian from Chris Olson. Chris Olson works over at Uber. He's a cargo claims
That's our boy.
manager.
We love Chris. He's a major part of Madtropolis.
Chris Olson says, any impact, and we've answered it, but I want to hear all three of you kind of give this answer if you wouldn't mind. Any impact to driver comfort stations, waiting areas at shippers, or co-signees locations? I know this answer, but to answer for the general public, what do you guys got?
For me, I think for what I've seen from our drivers, they're just shut down. You don't have them anymore. Completely.
Wow.
Yeah. In other words, access to facilities at a shipper or consignee. Yeah, it's not there. So you have to pre-plan, and it's difficult for our drivers, right? I mean, sometimes you need a facility. So I'm hoping that as we get deeper into this, I mean, notwithstanding people thinking that, well, May 15th hit and COVID just went away. It's going to be here with us for a while, and we got to learn how to live with this unwelcome house guest. So I think that we will hopefully over time, as we develop a better comfort level on practices and what are the best practices, drivers can once again gain access where they need it to facilities, at shippers and consignees. But that is a tough situation.
I'll tell you that yesterday, shipper, our Madtropolis shipper, one of them, he told us that they're still trying to provide the areas and disinfect, or maybe that was Burger Shipper who said that. A couple of them were saying they're trying the hardest to keep those areas open and lounges and disinfect them and clean them. And it is.
Clinton, what is that looking like though, Clinton? You're driving out there right now. I mean, you probably have your rest stops that you are tried and true you go to every time you pass by them. How have you been making do with this shutdown?
I mean, I myself, I like to drive. I don't stop unless I gotta stop. And the only places that I really stop, the big truck stops like the Flying J's and whatnot, they're not affected. Like their facilities are clean, they're good to use. I don't know. I haven't had any issues with that. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I pack food with me in the truck, and I hit a grocery store or Walmart whenever I can and stock the truck up with food. So if I have to stop in the middle of nowhere, I got toilet paper in the truck, and I've got a I've got food with me, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, the main places, like the major truck stops, they're still open 24 hours a day. You can get a shower and a washroom to use. And
How are you guys handling fatigue drivers, drivers who are running essential loads still, and
That's a
perhaps
good question.
going over the hours of service? And for those of you out there, I do know about the hours of service change. I have a lot to say about it, but we're not going to open that can right now. I want to stick with.
Oh,
We are totally not going to, because I'm going to light some
I'm excited
up.
about that. I'm so, 'cause
I might light it up on Friday.
Jim just asked you something similar to that in the comments. Like he's asking about liabilities and obligations to drive a
Yeah.
load.
And Steve, I know you're not in the safety department, but you work so closely with them, and Schneider's safety department is imminent across all of Schneider. But I mean, you're not from what you know and what you've been involved with. How have you guys been handling fatigue drivers and things going on out there on the road?
Well, that's the thing, you know, if you have more density, you have an option. And I just overheard some of the people from safety talking about it. So I just have a little bit of background, but I know they're very careful with that because it is such, I would view it as a liability. You know, even if it's allowed, even if it's legal, it may not be prudent. So.
Well said.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I said too.
If you're running over the hours of service legally because you're carrying essential supplies and you're fatigued and you're in an accident, there's no get out of jail free card.
Good point.
You know, you can regulate hours, you can't regulate fatigue, and so you got to listen to your body clock. And if you need to pull over, we as employers need to make sure that drivers can pull over. And you may hit fatigue way before you hit 10 hours. So I think managing fatigue is how you drive safety, and making sure that people have the freedom to call a timeout if they need to get a little rest.
Clinton, how have truck drivers out there been managing fatigue when they don't have a safety department behind them, and they don't quite have the training and understanding of, hey, if you're going all balls to the wall running loads, even though the government said you can, there are consequences. What's been going on out there with that? Because I do worry about our drivers.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't heard of anybody going over a ridiculous amount of hours. You know, safety is a priority. It has been for the last 20 years. And are you still there?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry, my phone cut out on me there. But I mean, safety is always a priority, and I haven't heard of any drivers complaining about working. If you're tired and you're complaining about it, don't bitch to anybody but yourself. Like, you're doing it to yourself. You know your internal clock. If you know you're tired, then shut her down, because I don't know. I don't care. Like, I push the limit. Trust me. I push everywhere I can. I cut corners on the logbook if I can. I do it. But I also know there's a fine line between safety and not safety. And priority is safety. You want to get home to your family, and you don't want to kill somebody else on the road so they can't go home to their family.
Good point. Good point.
You just have to. Yeah, that's it. I don't care how bad the customer needs their load or anything. Nobody should ever have to push the hours of service. If you're tired, you're tired, and that's it.
And you know what's interesting, you guys, because these comments are lighting up on this topic, which I have to thank Brendan for this too, because he gave me a little reminder. Although, Brendan, we're going to do another show about risk and safety entirely. And I'm going to drag on more Schneider people, because they are just, and Brian, if he wants to come on too, because, I love this topic. But I think this is an example of good brokering. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong. Amanda Miller says, I employ my carriers to let me know if they need to stop for rest. Let me know what their clock looks like, and I will make the shipper and receiver work with them. That right there is good brokering. That's how you prove yourself valuable to the carrier, I think. But you guys tell me. There's a lot of comments in here.
I got a question, Cassandra, that's on the law side, and I'm going to pick on Brian a little bit for this, and I'm curious to hear what you guys say. So, Brian, let's say you got a driver that's driving for Jetco, and he was perfectly healthy, he's been healthy, everything's perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden, while he's driving and delivering a load on behalf of your company, he does contract COVID-19 and is now sick. Let's go into two scenarios. if this driver is sick and then goes into the hospital, what are you employing? What is your company going to do? Is Jetco prepared for that? If the driver passes away, what is Jetco going to do with the liability of this driver contracting this fatal disease, virus, should I say, on your time?
Maybe not Jetco. Maybe you can talk about hypothetically too.
Hypothetically, yeah. Let's say hypothetically. Good job, lawyer. Thank you.
Hypothetical is always better. I think you really have to just, I mean, the way we've looked at it is we've bucketed this with the driver falling ill for one of a number of other reasons, right? I mean, I think what makes this different is that, I mean, people that say, well, COVID's just like, heart attack or something. No, one is infectious, one isn't. So, you need to handle COVID differently. But if a driver fell ill, and it wasn't work related, right? Then you're not in workers' comp land. You're not in your workers' comp territory.
That's what I was getting to.
But you're going to still take care of the driver.
Good.
And you're going to still, as imperfect as it may be, depending on where the driver is, you're going to help them get treatment, get to a facility, get home if possible. And some of the things that I think were said earlier really is what you've got to do. And if somebody gets sick in a major metropolitan area, that's one thing. If all of a sudden they start to fall ill in an area where there's absolutely nothing, that's another. But the key is being there for your drivers. And really, I don't think the discipline is that much different than taking care of somebody who falls ill. And we've had drivers, midway through a load, chest pains or something else, and we're just going to calm the situation down. We're going to stay with them until medical help comes. And it's about doing the right thing.
Yep. That's really smart. And I say that often, especially with safety and accidents and legal stuff. First, you do the right thing, then we worry about everything else that comes with it.
Exactly.
And doing the right thing is taking care of people. We have a few minutes left, and I have a burning question for everybody here, because I'm becoming very passionate. I was up half the night about this topic. The shippers, it came up in the shipper area because we were trying to talk about how BOLs, how we want to make them touch-free. And then the shippers were, I think they're in the best position to start requiring carriers and brokers as well to have electronic bill ladings, completely 100% touch-free. But there were a lot of operational issues that popped up during the shipper conversations. Stuff like drivers need the physical copy in their vehicle. Maybe they could have printers in their vehicle. Drivers like Clinton could give us insight about this too, is a lot of them wouldn't know how to use an app and have the electronic bill lading. Where have you guys been involved in these types of discussions or thought about that? And what are your thoughts about electronic bill ladings? Because I feel like we're in the new century. Why aren't they electronic? Why are we still using these stupid pieces of paper?
Well, here's the issue. You got it until people can learn how to use the app, like on a tablet. This should be easy, but until it's easy, you can't just say, "Trust me, I received the cargo." I mean, that's dangerous.
Trust me. Trust me, Steve. Trust me, Brian. I got your
trust me, it's in good
cargo.
order, no problem. I mean, now the tail is wagging the dog. I mean, it's not going to work. I mean, you short shipped me, the cargo was damaged. I mean, the bill of lading needs to protect the trucker too. So we can't just go from, because we're in the COVID era, screw the bill of lading, the hell with it. It doesn't work. So we've got to migrate electronically. And just like COVID has changed so many things, like here we are on Zoom for days at a time, right?
Right.
It's going to change. It's going to accelerate the change on the bill of lading. It's no longer just.
I see it already. Those apps are out there. I'm confused why people don't use them, especially in the sense that, and don't you worry, I push those shippers. I was like, guys, it starts with you guys. You have all the negotiation power. But my thing is it like for final mile? And for LTL, I mean, they're all electronic. So why the truckload, the OTR world is weird. Like Clinton, do you think if there was a very easy app, do you think you would use it for all your shipments?
Definitely. I mean, I was partners with my sister on some oil field trucks, and she was big into the technology and these kind of apps. And we had looked into these apps, and absolutely there's apps out there that I would love to use, but there are so many older truck drivers that just are not tech savvy. They don't even know how to use a damn
Clinton,
text.
what if I told
some
them
of these
you
guys.
don't get that shipment unless you have this app? Would they do it?
Ooh.
You would be screwed, because you would lose 90% of your, probably 50% of the workforce would just say, fuck it then, I'm not driving truck no more. You're going to tell me that I have to use this app. I'm out of here. I'm done.
But Clinton, they're doing ELDs.
They are doing ELDs.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with that. Look, now we're not a big carrier, right? And in 2008, we were even a smaller carrier, but we put ELDs in. We put PeopleNet in 2008, way before the mandate.
Yeah.
And people are going to quit. And you're going to lose half your drivers. Untrue. Absolutely untrue.
So what was it? Driver training?
It was training, but the key is you bring your drivers into the beta group. You don't dictate it. You bring them into the change. You don't dictate the change around them. We did this. We did the same thing in 2015 with our drive cams. Total acceptance.
That was exactly what I was thinking about.
Total
I was actually going to ask Steve. Outward facing cams.
And I'm talking young drivers. I'm talking senior, tenured drivers, everything in between. People get it, but they've got to understand what's in it for them.
Mm-hmm. Steve, what are your thoughts on this topic? Are you like, girl, I'm into maintenance. I don't want to be talking about electronic bill of ladings. Get out of my business.
I was going to jump in on the camera thing, because too, it's that beta group, and we used to say the three fastest forms of communication were, well, when Renee was in the office, we said telephone, telegraph, or tell Renee, but now it's telephone, telegraph, or tell a driver. Because once the word gets out that it is easy to use, and we usually try and pick a pretty good cross-section demographic from those guys that are almost ready to retire to the newbies. Newbies are, into gamification. They're accepted pretty well. And if you don't have some my more tenured test drivers trying to type, we're okay. But if they can embrace it and spread the word, and sometimes we'll put them in a video, and that tends to really increase acceptance. But yeah, like Brian said, you really have to get the acceptance out there. Hey, this looks complicated. It's not. It saves you time. It's less hassle, and it's easier.
Clinton, what do you think?
I say, Steve, and then when there's an accident that would mess up a personal safety profile, or that would be a serious tag on the company and the driver, but you're exonerated because of the camera, that gets around the company really fast.
Oh yeah, and we actually had one. It was a
stop sign.
Narrow two-lane road is what I was thinking. Intermodal driver, a van coming over the hill, minivan, drifts across the center line about 2/3 of the way, and then right in front of our truck, turns back in her lane, keeps going. You could see the shock on her face in the camera. Our guy had drifted over to the right, got on a soft shoulder, and tipped to the side. But if he hadn't done that, that driver of that minivan probably would have been dead. So totally exonerated him.
Yeah.
And then that word does spread like wildfire, Brian. You're right.
It does.
Good call.
And I remember there were a lot of, how about suicides? Or crossing the medians at 2 a.m. and hitting our trucks head on. That goes a lot. So there was a lot going on in the industry. So Clinton, what do you think about all this? Do you think maybe if we partnered with some of those carriers that would give us the finger for this EBOL app, do you think there's any way to bring them in, Clinton?
I don't see why not. I mean,
well, besides the fact that
I don't know.
They wouldn't take my load. I can go F myself.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm just using this as an example when I say drivers are going to quit. It's like 25 years ago, my father had a trucking company, and he brought in the core safety program certificate of recognition. And as soon as we brought in that safety and we started implementing things like random drug and alcohol testing, we lost 50% of our drivers immediately. Those drivers were some of the best drivers in the world. I will put money against that any day. But those guys just said, you know what? I don't care what your rules are. I'm not doing it. That's why they quit. I disagree with that. I like the new technology. I like to bring in e-bills and make it simpler. It's tracking. When I was partners with my sister, I could phone her at any time of the day, and she could be in Phoenix, Arizona, or anywhere on holidays in Mexico, and say, hey, I need you to pull this up on the computer. And she could pull up a bill of lading. She could pull up anything and look it up and go, yes, this is what happened, or this is why, or this was the price. And so, I mean, I agree with technology. I think it's good.
Yeah, I'm not letting this topic go. I'm not. And
no, Cassandra, that's where we're going. People, everyone in the technology or transportation industry needs to get this. So me being 2 years in, when I came into this industry, the first thing that I said was how antiquated. Where is the technology? When I came here, I came from retail space. I was a corporate liaison at Rent-A-Center, blah, 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 my credentials. And I came into transportation and I was looking for the technology. Then when I found the technology, I found people that were great tech guys, but they didn't understand logistics and freight. So now what we've come to, which happened before me coming into this industry, now where we're at is we have people that understand tech, they understand logistics, and they're trying to make us become better. So we are in the tech era of transportation where you're going to start seeing change. It'd be best for you to embrace it.
I can't. Oh, well said. Well said. This is your song, JD.
That is my song.
We went a little bit over, 6 minutes over. Steve, Brian, Clinton, thank you so much for joining us. Please come again. This is very educational. I can see the comments. People loved it.
People love Brian. What in the world? They love Brian.
No, we didn't light him up enough. I should have prepared better questions. Steve, tell everyone I said hello, please.
I will.
Schneider, I love them. I miss them very much. Clinton, be safe out there on the road. And then for all of you tomorrow at 2 p.m. CT, we are going to have the broker show. And then on Friday, do not forget, you guys, Friday is when stuff gets really rowdy. Swearing Cassandra comes back. We all get a beer. Come 2 o'clock CT. We come back here, right, JD?
2 o'clock p.m. CT.
We pick on Dave Abels, who can handle
it.
Don't forget your lasagna.
And don't forget, you see why I like that? Don't forget your
Clinton, here's the thing about that. That's actually going to be a segment name, not this Friday, but we're building out segments. Don't throw out the lasagna is a segment name.
Such a good marketer. All right, guys. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thanks.